Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a wonderful week at the Duck Zone. We got some wonderful football to talk about. It is Thanksgiving Day, so happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Great day for football, great day for sports overall. We're going to just jump right on into it. Week 13 starts this week, but we're going to go backwards, talk week 12 really quick. James, I know you have some things you want to talk about, so let's jump into that before we start discussing our Thanksgiving picks and the rest of the NFL slate of this week.
Yeah, I'll keep things pretty short. I know everyone is excited for Thanksgiving and ready to eat. So, yeah, I'll start it off the prior to the games, I should say, before we pick. One big note I wanted to write or I put down was we found out yesterday Daniel Jones was released and he signed with the Vikings. Interesting signing there. He came out and said that he wanted to go to a contender. So, yeah, he'll be the backup to Sam Darnold, I would imagine. I don't think he'll take the starting job. Um, and we'll see where his career goes from there. I mean, J.J. McCarthy's the future starter. Whether Darnold's there next year or not, Daniel Jones will probably slot in as the backup to him. So, big news, but also not like drastic, overhaul to the Vikings.
Mhm.
Anyways, going on from there, the notes I wrote down for last week's games, we had the Snow Bowl, and that game went to Nick Chubb and the Browns. Nick Chubb had a really good game, scored 2 touchdowns. And yeah, that was just a really fun game. It went from, a kind of a pass happy first half to the entire screen was white
Yeah.
and it turned into a running game. So, and also we got some cool Jameis Winston quotes, and
Mhm.
he's such a weird dude, but I love it. He's quirky. We saw the Chiefs get back to their old ways, just escaping. Always. I mean, I know they lost to the Bills the week before, but yeah, that team
Mhm.
they just know how to win. They just know how to
Yeah.
win. The Cowboys, with probably the stunner of the week, with how bad we've been talking about the Cowboys, they beat the Commanders. Commanders have won, or excuse me, won. Commanders have lost 3 in a row. So they need to get back on track because they're
Yeah.
still, I think, in my eyes, a possible wild card team. Actually, a lot of stunning, I should say. Titans stunned the Texans. That was kind of a weird game. Levis actually looked halfway decent. The Vikings almost got stunned, but in typical Bears fashion, they lost. So the Vikings outlast the Bears. However, I will say Caleb Williams probably had his best game of his career. He was really good. That does not fall on him, that loss. We saw the Broncos continue on. I don't think we've talked enough about Bo Nix, and he deserves his flowers. The guy's having a ridiculously good start to his NFL career. He set the record for he set the record for Broncos touchdown, or a rookie record for Bronco touchdowns. So I would assume that is quarterbacks, or maybe it's just rookies in general on the Broncos. It probably is all encompassing. But hats off to Bo Nix. The Niners, that team is in absolute disarray. Christian McCaffrey did not have a good game. Debo Samuel did not have a good game, but we did see that Brock Purdy didn't play, so that's also a factor.
Yeah.
Allen was the quarterback, and obviously whenever it's a quarterback league, and whenever a team has their backup in, unless you have a solid backup, like a Jameis Winston or someone like that, your season's probably not gonna go too smoothly for you. We saw Saquon just absolutely go into beast mode, 255 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's a absolute freak, and he, in my opinion, I think should be the MVP. Like I just said, it's a quarterback happy league, and I don't think we haven't seen a running back MVP in a long time. Maybe since like Sean Alexander sometime around, if Sean Alexander won an MVP. But yeah, it's been a long
Well,
time. I think Saquon deserves it, but if he keeps up, these 150 plus yard rushing performances with multiple touchdowns, who's to say he couldn't beat out Lamar? And last but not least, we talked about how awkward of a Thanksgiving it might be in the Harbaugh household. Well, John gets to continue to beat up little brother Jim. John is actually 3-0 against Jim all time. So, yeah, sorry, Jim, you don't really have anything to talk about this Thanksgiving with your brother. But that's kind of all the notes I had. Interesting. I would say it was an interesting day in the NFL. Nothing crazy other than a couple upsets but yeah, I'm looking forward to this Thanksgiving and Black Friday slate of games.
Yeah, we might as well just jump right on into it because it is a full slate of games this week. So we're just going to jump right into the games, and obviously we're going to be starting with Thanksgiving Day. Chicago heading to Detroit. Who would you take in this divisional matchup?
I always talk about divisional games being tight, and I think this one will not be. I think the Lions are just going to absolutely uh, demoralize the Bears. I mean, the Lions' defense and offense are unstoppable right now, so you can't bet against the Lions. So I got the Lions.
Yeah, I got the Lions as well. They're just a freight train at this point, and for many many years this was their Super Bowl day. But I mean, they're what 10-1 now, and are they 10-1 or 11-1 now? 10-1. They're 10-1. It's their best start since pre World War II. I mean, it's crazy. They're just on a different level. Um, our afternoon game, not as exciting, but the Giants heading to Dallas.
I'm picking the Cowboys here. I think they're going to roll into Thanksgiving and get a 2 game win streak going. I just after the release of Daniel Jones, Tommy DeVito's a little banged up, so we might get to see Drew Lock, but the Giants just don't have a lot going for them at all. So Cowboys at least have some names. Cooper Rush can throw the ball to C.D. Lamb. You got Rico Dowdle in the backfield, and even backup tight end Luke Schoonmaker made his appearance with a touchdown last week. So I got the Cowboys at home.
Yeah, I got the Cowboys as well. It kind of shows you just how wild this season's going, and just how some franchises are trending in the right and wrong direction. Detroit, as of this morning, ticket price, the lowest ticket price to get into their game, $200. Dallas, the lowest ticket price to get into their game, $15. Crazy to think that.
Wow.
I mean, you would have go back just 10 years ago. Those numbers are easily flipped.
Oh,
Our evening slate game, a game that didn't seem very appetizing a few weeks ago, is now pretty interesting. Miami heading into Green Bay.
I'm taking the Packers at home. The Dolphins just haven't proved to me anything in the Tua era that they can play in cold weather on the road. I haven't looked at the forecast for Green Bay, but I would imagine it's going to be pretty nippy up there, especially since it's, like you said, an evening game. But I do give mad props to oh my god, I'm blanking on Mike McDaniel. Talked about throwing ice cubes at his players to get them prepped. So unfortunately, Mike, I don't think that's going to help. Dolphins, like you said, they look a lot better. This will probably be a closer game than we think, but I got the Packers at home.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a competitive game. I'm going to take the Packers purely because it is up in Green Bay. I think it's going to be rocking, and but Miami's look better. I think this will be a good game. I just think Green Bay will come out ahead. Let's move to the Black Friday game on Amazon. Raiders going into Kansas City. We saw this game on Christmas Day last year, and the Raiders won it. Will they pull off the upset again on a holiday?
I don't think so. Not with Aiden O'Connell starting at quarterback and really just a team full of nobodies other than maybe Brock Bowers. I mean, Jacoby Myers is their number one receiver. Not that he's bad, but I don't know. I don't think he should be a number one. There's really not a lot to say about the Raiders, and there's a lot to say about the Chiefs. So, yeah, I'm not even going to go into detail because it's the Chiefs, and they'll find a way to win. So I got the Chiefs.
I got the Chiefs as well. I'd like to see them actually blow out a team for once. I know that's not great for ratings, but just from the aspect of this is a team, and Carolina should have been a team last week, but they need to show that they can basically step on someone's throat at this point because everyone's hanging around. I'll take the Chiefs. Let's move over to Sunday's games. Chargers heading to Atlanta. Who do you got in this one?
I'm taking Atlanta for two reasons. One, because they're the home team, and two, because they're coming off a bye. Chargers just lost J.K. Dobbins for probably a couple of weeks. I don't know. To me, that's a little demoralizing when you lose your starting running back. Gus Edwards hasn't proven much to me this year. I know in the past with the Ravens, he's been a nice filler running back, and maybe I'll eat my words, but the Falcons need a win, and they desperately need a win. So I'm going to take the Falcons at home.
Yeah, Falcons have been a little bit Jekyll and Hyde for me all season. Some weeks they look really good, some weeks they look really bad. I think the Chargers will come out with some fire. They looked a little bit flat, as you said, after J.K. Dobbins was lost in the second half of the game on Monday night. I think the Chargers win this game. It's tough for me to pick Atlanta at this point. I still think they're the most talented team in that division, but they're just some weeks they look like a playoff team, and some weeks they look like one of the worst teams in the league. They just get blown out. I think the Chargers are disciplined. They don't commit penalties. I can see this game being, an offensive struggle. And in that case, you're playing Jim Harbaugh football. I'm going to take the Chargers in this one.
I'm
Um,
curious. I'm curious to. I know we're probably a couple weeks away from this, but if the Falcons keep losing, I want to know if they're going to move to Penix, give him an opportunity. But we can
they
talk
might.
about that down the
They,
road.
they, they might. Um, Divisional matchup: Pittsburgh heading into Cincinnati. Who do you got here?
So this is the last week. I'm going to pick the Bengals. I'm so high on them. They have Jamar Chase and Burrow, and together they're probably the best quarterback wide receiver duo right now in the NFL. Their defense just isn't doing them many favors. That's really the only reason I'm picking them. It's going to be a hard nosed. These Steelers Bengals games are always hard nosed,
Yep.
just like every AFC North game it seems. So this is my last week. If the Bengals lose this, I'm not picking them. I still like the Steelers a lot, but I think the Bengals squeak this one out.
I think Pittsburgh wins this one coming off the mini bye, playing Thursday of the week before. I think they have a bounce back game from Cleveland. Cleveland, just the snowball, fluky stuff. But I like Pittsburgh a lot this year. I think they win this one. I like them a lot. I think they're a playoff team. Cincinnati, just especially defensively, has just been a struggle. But you're right. They can throw points up. The question is, will Pittsburgh? I'm taking Pittsburgh, but the big question is Pittsburgh hasn't scored a touchdown in 2 games. A lot of field goals. Um, yeah, we need to see them get it actually into the end zone. Arizona heading to Minnesota.
I like the Vikings at home. Cardinals, I swear, every time I watch them, they always struggle on the road. Um, they're coming off a really, really bad performance in Seattle, and a lot of fans and media people are kind of questioning why did you not give James Conner the ball? Why did you abandon the run? As we'd seen, the Cardinals were their offense looked really good when they were, even going a little more than a 50-50 split between, Kyler dropping back and Connor and Benson and company running the ball. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the Cardinals at least try to get the run game started early. The Vikings do have a really good defense, but I just think the Vikings are just going to be a little too much for them to handle at home. So Vikings.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Vikings as well. It feels like this could be a trap game, having them going into overtime against Chicago last week. Arizona just didn't look good, as you said, especially in Seattle. It was just not good. I still think Minnesota somehow finds a way to win this one. Arizona always seems to struggle up in Minnesota. I'm going to take the Vikings. Indianapolis heading to New England.
I'm taking the Colts. I don't have much to say on this game. They're two teams I haven't really watched much of. I mean, Patriots obviously, are really, really not good. Drake May kind of took a step back. Colts at least have a little bit of a pulse, so I'm just going to take the Colts.
I'm going to take the Colts as well. I like their defense, and they seem to keep them in games, so I'm going to go with that. Seattle heading to New York to play the Jets. Seattle looking pretty good after last week's win against Arizona.
Yeah, I'm going to take Seattle. I think it'll be a nail biter just because they have to travel across the country. But the Jets are the other New York team that just doesn't have a lot going for them. Rodgers has come out with some interesting comments in the past week, and another Jets loss. We might see a backup quarterback in. We might see Braylon Allen in for Brees Hall. Actually, Brees Hall's a little banged up, so he might not even play this week. So we actually might see Braylon Allen. But yeah, the Jets are a mess. So I'm going to take the Seahawks on the road.
Yeah, not much to add there. I'm going to take Seattle as well. Tennessee heading to Washington. Tennessee, as you said, kind of that stunner win. Washington had a stunner loss. Who do you have in this one?
Titans look a lot better. They've been playing better ball recently. I think this is the game though that the Commanders get back on track. So I'm taking the Commanders to rebound at home.
Yeah, I think the Commanders win as well. The Tennessee's offense has actually looked really good recently, but I am going to take Washington. Um, we're going to see. I think last week was an awakening of, hey, yeah, we got to come out and play every single game or we're going to lose. Houston heading to Jacksonville. Looks like Trevor Lawrence might actually play this game.
Just like the Commanders, I think the Texans are going to rebound. I mean, I don't know if they're a Super Bowl contender quite yet in my eyes, but they're starting to get obviously healthier. We saw Nico Collins have a pretty big game last week, but the Texans are better than that, and I think they rebound and beat the Jags.
Yeah, I'm going to take Houston as well. I don't have much to add on to that one. LA Rams heading to New Orleans. Start of the afternoon slate on Sunday.
These are tough games for me. These are teams that, you know, yeah, I don't know. I'm taking the Rams just because they have Kyron Williams and Puka
Yeah.
Nakua and, you know, Stafford. Why not? Rams on the road.
Yeah, I got Isaac the Rams as well. Kind of the same thing. Kind of threw it up in the air and said the Rams have really just been average back and forth, but they got a lot of talent. So I feel more confident that they're going to be able to score touchdowns, more touchdowns than New Orleans. Basically, just comes down to that. Remember, like 6 years ago, that game around Thanksgiving where it just was back and forth touchdown between those two offenses, and they were super explosive. It's crazy how fast football changes. Um, Tampa Bay heading to Carolina.
Carolina's looking a lot better too. Some of these teams that were like dead in the water, I feel like have risen out a little bit and at least are treading water. Bryce Young actually looks like a competent quarterback. He's unfortunately just going up against Baker, who Baker is just finding ways to win in any way he can. I know the Bucks aren't. I don't have the record up with me, or I don't have the record up right now, but Mike Williams is back and healthy. There's a trio of running backs with the Bucks, and then, like I said, Baker's having a ridiculous season. I mean, people are yelling his name in the MVP conversation, so I like Baker and the Bucks to win this on the road.
Yeah, I like Tampa Bay as well. As you said, Mike Evans is back. They got a good running back core. They got a good set of wide receivers. I will say though, Carolina's coaching job up to this point, where they looked the first 4 weeks of the season to where they are now, it's night and day. They've done a great job of rising up some of this young talent, and Carolina is going to be a team that, if this continues, they could have a pretty promising 2025 because they're going to probably have a pretty nice draft pick. If I remember right, I don't think it goes to Chicago at this point. Um, they got a nice little promising future going on in Carolina at this point, but Tampa Bay will win this one. I think this is probably game of the week in my opinion. Philadelphia heading to Baltimore.
I've gone back and forth on this game. I had the Eagles circled earlier. I had the Ravens circled. Then I went back to the Eagles. I think I'm going to go back. I'm going Ravens just because they're at home. If there's any opportunity the Ravens defense has to at least slow down Saquon, I don't want to say they easily win, but they have a good shot of winning. And they have Lamar. So I'm just going to take the Ravens and pray that, not pray, but, in my prediction, hope that Saquon doesn't have one of those monster games. But who knows? Doesn't seem like anyone can stop Saquon right now, so we'll see. But I'm taking the Ravens at home.
I'm actually also taking the Ravens, partly because they're at home. I think they're going to come out with a lot more fire, just from the aspect of they need this game more. Philly is getting kind of comfortable in the spot of they've created separation from Washington. It looks like they're going to win the division, and Detroit can't lose, so they're trying to catch that one seed, but it may not happen. Baltimore needs this game. Baltimore can't get their fifth loss at this point. They're in a very tough division with Pittsburgh. Cleveland and Cincinnati are a little lower down, but they're very competitive as well. They're going to need these wins. Philly, still in a division with the Giants and the Cowboys. There's a lot of cupcake wins still down the path. I think Baltimore comes in with a lot more urgency, like we saw on Monday night. Kind of treated like a playoff game. I see Baltimore winning this one. San Francisco kind of addressed them earlier. Things going sideways there. Going up to Buffalo, they're looking really good.
Even if Brock Purdy plays, I'm still taking the Bills. The Niners have proven me nothing in the last couple weeks, and there's no way they're going to go into Buffalo and win that game. So I'm taking the Bills at home.
I think the Bills as well. I don't have much to add there. Monday night, Cleveland heading to Denver.
Taking the Broncos. They're for real. Bo Nix is real. That defense is real. Sean Payton has finally got his system working in Denver, so I like the Broncos.
I got nothing to add. I got the Broncos as well. They've been looking very, very good. Let's jump over to college football. A lot going on over there. I know you want to talk about some things that happened the past week, so I'll give you the floor. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so this is probably our last dual NFL NCAA show. After this week, we're going to split up and do NFL, have its own episode, and have a little more focused college football show with championships coming up, and then obviously the playoff reaction, and then the 12-team playoffs. So with that being said, we saw Mac Brown get fired I think 2 days ago now at this point, from UNC. So UNC will be on the coaching search, which who knows who they'll get. I mean, they've had a good program the last couple of years. There's been actually a couple of quarterbacks who've come out of UNC, one being Drake May recently. But I wouldn't really call them a football powerhouse. They were able to reel in Mac Brown somehow, who's a big name coach, obviously, with his national championship at Texas. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they go from there, how much they want to put into their football program in terms of their next coaching hire. We saw Ohio State put Indiana in its place, especially in the second half. It was close at halftime, but Ohio State just kind of put their foot on their neck in the second half, which is too bad. I was really pulling for Indiana, and I was hoping that they weren't. I don't want to call them a fluke, but this was kind of an eye-opening test for Indiana, and a lot of people are now down on them as opposed to high on them going into that game. Florida upset Ole Miss, which pissed me off because that screwed up my freaking parlay, but it's what it is. Dart was absolutely horrendous. The guy was it's like he was a magnet for throwing interceptions. And Ole Miss, barring something crazy, which this has been a crazy season, is likely done. SMU clinched a spot in the ACC title game with their win, so hats off to them. Kind of a fun note I just wanted to throw in here. Obviously, this has no bearing on anything whatsoever, college football playoff related, but we saw Florida State show some signs of life and just absolutely exert their dominance on, wait for it, 1-11 Charleston Southern. So, sorry, Florida State, you're still at the bottom of the barrel and you have a lot of work to do. Penn State barely hung on at Minnesota, and in my opinion, I can't get behind them. They're my weakest playoff team. They haven't beaten anyone. I guess they beat Illinois, and at the time that was decent, but every year Penn State is highly regarded. James Franklin is this great coach, but it's like, okay, but what have you done? Nothing. We saw a pretty crazy ending in the ASU BYU game. ASU got the upset, but that was nuts. The fans rushed the field. It was so, yeah, that was just crazy. Sam Levitt just drops back, hoping to waste some time, chucks the ball out of bounds, but he got, I think BYU rushed like 4 or 5, where ASU thought maybe they'd only get like a 3-man rush. Well, that caused him to throw the ball a little quicker than anticipated, and it actually hit the fans in out of bounds with like a second left. So, that was a weird ending. Watching all the fans have to try to get, mushed off the field, and that it was a 15 to 20 minute process. What a mess! And I was fingers crossed, hoping BYU would complete that Hail Mary touchdown, which they did. They were just
Yeah, those are
2 yards
short.
short.
Yeah,
So that would have been hilarious if that was only 2 yards further. I would have loved to see what the ASU fans,
yeah,
not only what the ASU fans would have done, but then the amount of backlash they would have got on Sports Center and all those shows. I mean, that would have been a bad Scott Van Pelt bad beat for sure.
yeah.
And speaking of ASU, they actually have a shot at a bye, which is absolutely insane. Thinking of where that program was a year ago. Obviously, as you can see with my hat, I'm a U of A guy, but hats off to Kenny Dillingham. He's really turned that program around really fast. He destroyed the transfer portal. Sam Levitt's looking like a damn good get from Michigan State. Yeah, I mean, it was quite upset heavy. We had Kansas upset Dion and the Buffs. Kansas set a record as a losing team beating 3 ranked teams in a row. So hats off to Kansas. Dion still has an opportunity. It's going to be a rather than him rather than him owning his own fate, he has to hope that some other things go his way for him to get to that title game and have a chance at the playoffs. Notre Dame, in my head, is definitely creeping up as a title contender. Their loss at Texas A&M doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. Same with the NIU loss. I feel like how they've been playing recently is more what's on the people's minds, and they're dominating teams. I know it's not the best schedule, and they're dominating like the service academies, but I don't know. They look really good. Another stunner, we saw Oklahoma beat Bama. And then along with that, we saw Bama as a 3-loss SEC team as the first team out in the college football ranking show. So Sean, I'll let you go into a little detail about that. Why does the committee, maybe it's not that just the committee, but the media, the committee, everyone is just like, I mean, like what? Why does Bama always get this like to go their way?
I think there's a combination of two things with this one this year. One, the first one is really the fact that they're in years past, like we'd have the top 15, and a lot of these teams would be really good, and you'd have a lot of 1, 2 loss teams in there, and you'd be like, okay, this is a clear cut, you know, top 15. This year, you got even teams that are in the top 5, like we talked about Penn State and a couple of these other Indianas, that are a little bit more unproven, don't have that great win. The SEC is kind of just beating up on each other. Usually we see 1 or 2, 3 teams that are like, oh, they're just better than everyone else. We're not really seeing that this year. We're seeing a lot of, you know, teams that are very much the same. And one of the big things that really helps Alabama is that win to Georgia. And I think a lot of people are really giving a lot of credit for that. But like it's a great year for the playoff the way it's set up with 12 teams, because arguably there are 12 teams that are just they're good. There's no one great. Even Oregon that's 11-0, they're good. They're not. I don't think they're great. I think they're a very good team. They've won every game. They found a way to win every game, but like they haven't looked flashy doing it. Like these are not like the teams that are winning by 50. It's even Georgia. They have games where they've looked wow, they kind of snuck that one out. Like they've done that multiple times this year. Texas, their best win is still Vanderbilt, isn't it? I mean,
Probably.
it's yeah. I mean, it's kind of one of these years where Alabama's kind of gotten lucky in the aspect of if there's a year to go, 8-3, this is the year to do it. I mean, any year in the last 15 years, actually take that back, any year pre this year in college football history, 8-3 would not get it done. But because now we have 12 teams, and luckily one of those wins is to Georgia. I mean, the only one that's really kind of a loss is, I mean, Vanderbilt is not a great loss. Losing at Tennessee this year is not bad. Oklahoma's not great. I mean, that's not a great loss. But as we've always said with this show, especially this year, is we just got to let these games play out and let's see what happens. That's the biggest thing at this point.
Yeah, we still have a week to go, and then championship week. So
I mean,
we'll see.
I still think it'll be hilarious if Alabama gets in. They're probably going to get in as the 11 seed, maybe even the 12 seed, which is going to force them to go play more than likely somewhere up north. And like it'll be interesting to see. I mean, how crazy would it be? And this could very well happen. Imagine big powerhouse Alabama having to go to Indiana in the middle of December.
Yeah, or like a matchup like Ohio State Alabama. If say Ohio State gets that 5 seed, I
I
mean
mean,
talk about a rough draw for Ohio State if they have to play Alabama in the
yeah, yeah.
first round.
But it's one of those things that's kind of fun about these possibilities, these matchups that could happen. Um, they're fun to think about, and they very well could happen. I mean, for Alabama's sake, I mean, the best thing that you could wish for is literally somehow you get in as the 11 or 12 seed, and somehow you draw Texas,
Right.
and you get to stay south, and you get to play one of your SEC opponents, and that would be all right. Cool, we got an easy draw. You don't want to go up north and have to. You don't even want to even have to go play Penn State, just from the aspect of that place to be rocking. And once again, you could be potentially going to play Penn State in the middle of a snowstorm.
Right.
So
Yeah, I don't think Bama's really conditioned for that. So
yeah, and Bama kind of goes back to that whole thing of they've had weeks where they've looked real good. Georgia's a good example of that. And then like last week against Oklahoma, 3 points. I
roller
that's so
coaster.
hard. Though. Yeah, it's hard to even imagine a team that we've been watching Bama for 20 years. I mean, Nick Saban never had a 3 point game. I
No.
mean, even in those years where he didn't have a great quarterback, they found a way to score points. I mean, this is a weird Alabama team, and it really goes to show in certain cases how good Nick Saban was.
I was just gonna say, if people don't think coaching matters, not that there's a lot of people who think that, but like the differential between Kalen DeBoer and Nick Saban is massive.
It's night and day.
Not saying
Like,
Kalen DeBoer can't be
yeah.
good, but Nick Saban's a Hall of Fame coach. So
Here's the other one too. Actually, I completely blanked on this because it's actually a real reality. Um, this would just be iconic for ratings. And I can't believe I slipped on this because they could very well land in the 5 or 6 spot. Is Notre Dame? Alabama could be heading to South Bend.
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and
That is.
I can't believe I completely slipped on that. So, I mean, Notre Dame's going to be hosting that 5 or 6 spot more than likely. I don't think they're going to lose to USC, um, and they're going to be hosting someone that's going to be crazy for ratings. So it's going to be fun. So,
And
um,
that's the last note I had was Auburn outlasted A&M in a thriller 4 overtime game. Uh, that pretty much knocks Texas A&M out of their shot too.
yeah,
So, Sean, I'll kick it back to you. We're not doing games to watch per se. There's a ton of games to watch because it is theoretically rivalry week. I know there's some weird matchups because of the new conference alignments, but yeah, kick it back to you.
Yeah, we're gonna do something a little bit different this week. Rather than giving a spotlight game or five set of games for you guys, what we're gonna do is we're gonna both pick two games where we think upsets are gonna happen. Since in all reality, there's probably about 15 games to watch because of the rivalry matchups and the playoff implications. So we're gonna focus on two games apiece that we think an upset will or might happen. James, I'll let you start with your two first.
Yeah, so my first one is Texas A&M over Texas. Texas is only favored by 5, but they're on the road, and we've talked about in the past how Kyle Field's a tough place to play. A&M is undefeated at home. They beat Notre Dame earlier in the year. Um, and yeah, I mean Texas A&M's a good team. They obviously weren't able to outlast Auburn. Uh, but I think Texas A&M, if you are a gambling person, want to look at a potential upset, look at Texas A&M money line or even the spread. I mean, I think Texas A&M easily could just lose by a field goal. Texas hasn't. You mentioned Texas earlier. They're one of those teams. They're in the top 5, but who are they? What have they done? And they haven't really done much. They don't have a signature win. I think you mentioned it was Vanderbilt, and I can't think of anyone else who it would be over than them. So I think so. This is probably Texas's biggest game since then. Obviously Georgia was it? Did they play Georgia this year or Alabama?
They remember they lost badly to Georgia at home.
I just couldn't remember if it was Alabama or
Yeah,
Georgia. But yeah, so they lost bad. So their biggest game was obviously Georgia, and they got pounded.
yeah,
So A&M is going to be this is a really good test for Texas, especially going into championship week the next week.
yeah.
But I kind of like Texas A&M. My second game, I'm going with my alma mater, which is a little scary because they're not Arizona's not a good team. They have the talent, but Brent Brennan and his coaching staff have just I don't know what they're doing because they yeah, sure, they lost a couple players to the transfer portal, but like a big core of the team came back. Their defense, I don't even want to get into that. They've sustained a ton of injuries, so that doesn't help. But the offense, my God, just looks so bad from time to time. It's like Fafita was so sure-handed last year. He threw like 2 interceptions total. This year he's tossed like 11 or 12. I don't know. Not a good team, but the talent's still there, and it's a rivalry game with ASU, and it's in Tucson. So ASU's favored by 8.5, but as we've seen in years past with this territorial cup, you just throw that out the window because record doesn't matter. It's going to be a bloodbath. So I'm taking Arizona to beat ASU in the hopes that one, I want an Arizona win, and two, I don't want to hear my ASU friends just talking about ASU football. So those are my two upsets: Texas A&M and Arizona.
So I'll just say this really quick. I agree with you with everything you said with the Arizona game. I think Arizona wins that as well. Going to my other two picks, I think South Carolina beats Clemson. South Carolina 15, Clemson 12. Clemson is at home, but South Carolina's been very good throughout this season. They played a lot of ranked teams. They've beaten ranked teams. Clemson has been a little shaky here and there. Um, I'll take South Carolina. Clemson needs some help in order to get into that ACC championship game. This would obviously knock them out. South Carolina could, with a win here, could suddenly sneak their way in a weird world. Could happen. The other one is Syracuse over Miami. Miami plays games very close. They come down to their opponent. They lost one earlier this year. They could have lost two others. And Syracuse 8-3. Could be a scary matchup. Miami could be looking ahead to the ACC championship game, prepping for that SMU situation. And I mean, as I said, Miami's kind of played down to their opponent all year, and I could see them doing that again here. So those would be my two, and Arizona, which we agree on.
I like it.
Yeah. James, anything you want to add on before we jump off here?
No, everyone just have a nice, safe Thanksgiving full of lots of alcohol and lots of food.
Yeah, sounds good. Everyone have a wonderful holiday weekend, and until next week, as James said earlier, we'll be doing a college football show and an NFL show going forward. A lot of fun stuff going to happen in December. So, guys, keep an eye on it. Thank you for watching. Until next week, have a good weekend.